Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me? So I'm going to talk about something probably a little bit less important, maybe some of you, than a lot of what the people before me have talked about, but mobile design for barns and gas stations in 15 easy steps. We'll do it in 15. That sounds good. So like I said, I'm Will Carter. I started a company called Nodesnoop Labs, and I like to think of the stuff we do as being sort of boutique on the boutique side, but also sort of aggressively playful or aggressively weird. So I really like to think about designing for the real world. And that really has a lot of meaning to a lot of people in the room probably here. But thinking about how we can take these devices and really create sort of provocative or meaningful experiences, be they sort of games or whatever, for our environment. So I grew up in Utah, so there's a lot of barns in Utah, and I live in Los Angeles now, so I think about gas stations a lot. And so I think it's really important to think about these things as design challenges, and so that's sort of why I've been presenting this today. So the first step is you got to start with a barn or a gas station. This sounds like a pretty obvious thing, but lots of people would, sort of think, hey, I'll develop the barn and the gas station application. We'll start with the barn, and we'll start, hey, let's incorporate the gas station features, right? So step 2 is never do that. Never design for both a barn and a gas station at the same time. You're going to end up with a cluster thing of this barn here, right? You're going to start incorporating barn features into your gas station application. That's just screwed up. So step 3, you got to pick one thing about that location and really figure out what that thing is about, right? So basically, if I'm at a barn, what am I doing at that barn? Am I raising it? Am I shoveling hay? At the gas station, what am I doing? Am I pumping gas? So step 4, no killer applications here, right? So you're not thinking about developing the barn wayfinding application. Or the sort of nearest Starbucks to this barn. Like, those things are just things that aren't going to happen. So step 5, thinking about space. So I like to think about space as the opportunity. So I think, hey, here's a gas station. What's the opportunity here for me? What can I take with these sort of physical constraints of the space and make it interesting? And the next step is to sort of think about place. And so if space is kind of the opportunity, then place is the reality. It's like giving yourself some constraints about what humans actually do at the place that you're designing for, right? So so step 7, thinking about time. So how much time do I actually have to distract my users? Or to think about, if it's at a gas station, maybe it's like a minute, 2 minutes. At a barn, it could be multiple hours, right? So that's really important. Step 8 is thinking about people. So am I here alone? Am I here with my girlfriend who's mad at me because I'm looking at the application that I built, right? This happens a lot. So that's important. Step 9, bam, worrying about fun. This is really important to me. But if I'm sitting there using the application that you developed for this barn, and I'm having less fun in this barn, then there's a serious design flaw with what you just gave me, right? So that's really important for the stuff that I make. So step 10, don't think about what happens if I need to access the barn application while I'm at the gas station, right? This is kind of related to step 2, but it gets you really confused. It makes you sort of have this interface that's kind of confusing. You don't know what exactly you're supposed to do. Step 11, don't worry if your application only works at 70% of the world's barns, because 70% of the world's barns is still a shitload of barns, right? So think about like what your target audience, and if you can get out to 100% of them, that's more important. So step 12, consider failure. So what happens if your like hay barrel queries for the barn API get rate limited or something like that? What happens then? You got to consider what's going to happen to your end users to what might get screwed up. So step 13, work really hard to design applications that work with both barns and gas stations. Okay, so this is kind of counterintuitive for what I've been saying. But if you can think about contextual UI, if your phone knows that you're at a barn, knows that you're at a gas station, it can deliver in a sort of sneaky way, like the sort of specific interface that you've been designing. So it can be really like not this hodgepodge interface that can do like tries to do everything that a barn and a gas station needs to do. So step 14 is like actually just replacing the barn and the gas station with any other place. So these are sort of designed to be universal rules. So maybe a Justin Bieber concert application, right? No, that didn't work. Okay, whatever. The last thing was a joke, but it didn't work. All right, my bad. All right, I'm all done. Thank you.